Antonio's Story, Legacy of the Fallen, by Charles Olson. Chapter 14. Checkpoint. The sun bled across the early morning sky in a haze of orange and gold, casting long shadows across the cracked asphalt of Route 1. Antonio, Chaco, and Mono tore down the highway like fugitives, engines howling beneath them. The wind ripped at their clothes. Their silhouettes cut sharp against the horizon as the city shrank behind them, and the wild expanse of southern Panama unfolded ahead. The jungle faded. Low farmlands stretched out on either side. Dusty towns rolled by in a blur. It was long. It was brutal. It was hot. The journey north. The road coiled through the mountains like a serpent, winding between convoys of wheezing trucks. Antonio and Chaco wove between them on their bikes, engines growling, tires flirting with the edge of gravel shoulders. Each turn threatened to throw them off, but they pressed on, sweat and dust painting their skin in streaks. They stopped only briefly at a rundown gas station. Chaco bent over the sink, splashing water on his face, while Antonio refilled their bottles, hands trembling beneath the sputtering faucet. They said nothing, just moved like men who had too much on their minds and too far left to go. Antonio kept checking his side mirror, again and again, like he expected something or someone to be following. Ghosts, maybe, or worse. And then they saw it, a green sign rising from the roadside, half hidden by vines and dust. Paso Canoas, 15 kilometros. They didn't speak, just throttled forward, the border inching closer with every mile. They reached the outskirts of the border town by mid-afternoon. A sun-bleached super-mini mart clung to the side of the highway beside an aging gas station. The paint peeled from the walls, the plastic sign buzzed in the heat. Their bikes rolled into the lot, engines coughing once before falling silent. Antonio was off his bike the second they stopped. His hands moved fast, opening his pack, checking its contents with surgical precision.
Gas up. Double-check your shit. No weapons. No powder.
He barked.
If you got anything illegal, dump it now.
Chaco raised his eyebrows.
We good, man. We've crossed before, remember?
Antonio's tone didn't shift.
Not after your mom just got murdered.
That shut everyone up. They sat on the curb behind the station, gear spread in front of them like kids being inspected at school. Passports? Check. No blades, no pills, no weed, no vials? Check. A few bills folded neat? Check. Chaco grunted.
I feel like I'm back in high school getting checked by my cousin's abuela.
You want to get stopped at the border and sent back to rot in Panama?
Antonio shot back. Mono threw his hands up.
Nope, I'm good.
The Paso Canoas border crossing was low-key and tired. Just a squat building, a checkpoint gate, and 2 bored guards baking under a tin roof. The scent of dust and diesel filled the air. They rolled up slow, helmets off, sweat glistening on their foreheads. Antonio led the way, dismounting and striding up to the window. A graying border guard looked up, indifferent.
Purpose of visit?
Antonio held up his hand. Clasped inside it, folded tight, was a crisp $100 bill.
Tourism, short trip to San Jose, 3 of us, all clean.
The guard didn't blink. The bill vanished with a quiet flick of fingers. Bienvenidos a Costa Rica. The gate lifted. The road opened wide. They had crossed the border without inspection, without a word. No one looked back. The Costa Rican highway unfurled like a promise. Smooth. Open. The tension began to bleed from their shoulders as the jungle gave way to hills and scattered homes. The sky was streaked with orange by the time they hit the outskirts of Barrio La Cartonera. Crumbling buildings hugged the road. Smoke curled from small roadside grills. The vendors were packing up for the night. Antonio slowed slightly, scanning the signs. Then he saw it, a flickering neon glow in the growing dusk. Hotel El Gran Impala. Paint peeling, barred windows, 2 stories tall. Not much, but it was standing. He raised an arm, signaling. The others followed him into the gravel lot. Their bikes sputtered to silence in the courtyard, engines echoing off the tiled walls. Mono sighed as he swung off his bike.
I thought you were going to ride us straight into Nicaragua.
Chaco cracked his back.
I was about to pass out on the handlebars.
Antonio nodded toward the building.
It'll do for tonight. We'll get real sleep. No more couches. No more floors.
God bless tile beds and mystery stains.
Mono muttered, stretching. They laughed. Short, tired laughs. But it helped. Chaco jogged toward the office, hand raised.
I got it. I'm buying the beds and the burritos.
Inside, the desk clerk barely looked up from his telenovela. A quick exchange in Spanish, a few bills passed under the counter, and a single key returned. No ID. No names. 10 minutes later, Chaco returned triumphant, plastic bag in one hand, key in the other.
Room 7.
He grinned.
End of the hall. Comes with complimentary roaches and no hot water.
Antonio took a burrito without a word.
Perfect.
He muttered. Room 7 was small and stale. A single bulb buzzed overhead. 2 narrow beds, one makeshift mattress on the floor made from spare blankets. A fan creaked rhythmically as it turned. They sat against the walls, burritos in hand, too hungry to care about etiquette.
Not bad for gas station cuisine.
Mono mumbled, half-chewed.
It's the sauce, man.
Chaco said.
Burn your sins off.
Antonio didn't laugh. He chewed quietly, staring out the barred window. Then, without a word, he stood and drew the curtain closed.
Get some rest,
He said.
We move early.
He tossed his jacket onto a chair, kicked off his boots, and lay down on the far bed. No more talk. The road to Mexico. The next few days were a blur. Miles melted together. So did the meals, the road stops, the motel beds, the heat, all of it. They raced through Nicaragua as dawn painted the hills. Chickens clucked near roadside stands. Dogs barked at the blur of engines. They ate greasy chicken and rice from styrofoam trays, sweat dripping from their necks as they wiped dust from their faces. They rolled into a rundown motel in El Salvador. Took turns sleeping and watching the bikes through cracked blinds. Antonio bribed his way through border crossings like he was born for it. Passport in one hand, folded bills in the other. He talked fast and bribed faster. They slept with their boots on, crossed into Guatemala under a curtain of summer rain. The rhythm never slowed. Forward was the only direction that mattered. By nightfall, they rolled into Las Champas, an edge-of-nowhere town deep in Guatemala. The streets were narrow, slick with oil and heat. They turned into an alley behind a pink hotel sign, peeling and crooked. Hotel Maria Eugenia. Warm light glowed behind barred windows. The place looked like it might collapse if you slammed a door too hard, but it was safe enough for one night. They parked beside a rusted gate. Chaco looped a thick chain through the wheels and frames of the bikes, securing them tight with a heavy padlock.
She's chained tighter than my last relationship.
He muttered.
Don't jinx it.
Mono replied, scanning the alley. Antonio said nothing, just stared at his bike. The GSXR 600 gleamed, dusty but proud. He ran a hand gently across the gas tank, his last piece of the life he used to have. They checked in and went to their room. Inside, the room was tiled and damp, fan whirring above them. A single bulb buzzed overhead. Plates of beans and eggs sat untouched on the nightstand. Antonio lay on his back, staring at the ceiling until he faded off to sleep. Tomorrow they would cross into Mexico, and everything after that was an unknown. Antonio was the first to wake the next morning. The sun hadn't cleared the rooftops yet, but the heat was already creeping in. Antonio stretched and stepped into the alley. He froze. Silence. Only one bike remained, and it wasn't whole. The chain lay cut, curled like a dead snake. Antonio's bike was nothing now, just a stripped-down frame. No wheels, no gas tank, no engine. Gone.
What the hell?
Chaco's voice came from behind.
No. No, no, no.
Mono breathed, rounding the corner. They stood in stunned silence.
2 bikes gone. Yours gutted.
Mono said.
How the hell did no one hear anything?
Antonio dropped to one knee beside the skeletal frame. He touched the metal. It was still warm. He didn't cry, but he wanted to. Something inside him fractured, quietly, permanently. They spent the next hour asking questions. No one had answers. No one had seen a thing. Locals shrugged, avoided eye contact. At the front desk, Antonio stood across from a woman in her 50s. Rosa. She pretended to shuffle room keys, eyes cast down. His voice was calm, controlled.
Do you know anyone selling a used car?
He asked.
Something that'll make it to Mexico City?
She looked up slowly. Something in his face changed her. She leaned in, voice soft.
My cousin sells junkers around the corner. Tell him Rosa sent you.
They walked the block in silence. The sun was already climbing high, baking the pavement. At the end of the street sat a lot full of beat-up cars behind a rusted fence. A crooked sign read, Vehículos económicos, solo efectivo, economy vehicles, cash only. Among the rust and regret sat one standout, a 1984 brown Chevy Chevette. The paint had faded to a color somewhere between clay and desperation. The roof was scorched. The tires didn't match, no hubcaps. A greasy tailpipe puffed smoke from beneath the rusted muffler. Chaco tilted his head.
Well, it's technically a car.
The dealer greeted them with a grin that was all teeth and sweat.
You boys are lucky.
He said in Spanish.
This one's a classic. Still runs. $500. Firm.
Antonio didn't speak. Chaco squatted beside the car, rattling off diagnoses like a mechanic with X-ray vision. Right front tires bald, rear lefts from a motorcycle, I swear. Headliners cracked. Oil pans leaking. Carbs probably shot. Might flood on hills. Exhaust leak. Sounds like a lawnmower in heat.
It smells like someone died inside.
Mono added. The door creaked open like a haunted house. The seats were torn, stained, foam guts spilling out. Antonio looked at the dealer, dead-eyed.
$250.
The man laughed.
Estás loco? This ain't the junkyard.
Antonio took a step closer, chest to chest, staring the dealer down.
2 of our bikes vanished last night, right behind Hotel Maria Eugenia. Chained, locked.
The dealer's grin wavered.
Not saying it was you,
Antonio continued.
but you got this car waiting for 3 amigos the next morning?
Chaco crossed his arms.
And Rosa's watching you from across the street.
The dealer peeked over Antonio's shoulder. Sure enough, Rosa stood across the road, arms folded, staring. A long beat. The dealer exhaled.
For Rosa.
He said, his smile souring.
$250.
Antonio pulled out 550s, peeled off 3, handed them over. No handshake, no thank you. The Chevette coughed to life like a dying dog. Chaco slammed the hood shut and climbed into the passenger seat. Mono folded into the back, legs pressed against a rattling speaker box. Antonio slid behind the wheel, stone-faced.
I miss my bike already.
Mono muttered.
We're trading style for stealth.
Chaco said.
No one's gonna chase this thing.
No one would want to.
Antonio replied. They rolled out past the hotel, the exhaust barking like a wounded animal. Rosa stood at the curb. Antonio nodded once. She nodded back. The road opened ahead. The rattle of the engine grew louder. The wheel shook under Antonio's hands. He pressed the pedal harder, eyes locked on the horizon. Mexico was next, and if Panama taught him anything, it only got harder from here.